Comedian Groucho Marx once said, "Politics is the art of looking for trouble, finding it everywhere, diagnosing it incorrectly, and applying the wrong remedies." Using that same logic, one could argue that Rodrigo Duterte, the current outgoing president of the Philippines, is the Picasso of politics. So, let's take a look at some of his best work. Welcome to Neapolitan. Today we'll be looking at the 16th president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte. We're going to take a dive into where he's from, how he got here, and look at the man he is today. We'll be looking at it broken down into three unique sections, like Neapolitan Ice Cream, the vanilla, the who, what, where, and when of the folks that changed the world, chocolate, that flavor punch, controversy and adversity make lives so interesting, and the strawberry, the lasting legacy and lick that all Neapolitan lives come with. If you're interested in other videos like this, or different in-depth looks at essential people throughout history, then make sure you're subscribed to the channel with post notifications on, so you never miss a single one. Without further ado, let's get into it. Vanilla. Rodrigo Roa Duterte was born on March 28, 1945, in the city of Maasin in the Philippines. Destined for a career in politics, his mother was a teacher and a prominent activist, while his father was a lawyer who would go on to serve as a provincial governor. In fact, it was when his father became governor that Rodrigo, also known as Roddy, was dragged along to Davao City. This is where he would make a name for himself as mayor decades later, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Following in his daddy's footsteps, Rodrigo first practiced as a lawyer, obtaining a law degree from the San Beda College of Law in 1972, but not before being expelled from two different secondary schools for misconduct. Duterte has made claims that he was being sexually abused as a minor back then by a priest who he has since named as Father Mark Falvey. Several accusations came out against Falvey in 2002, and although he was never charged with a crime, because he died in 1975, the Society of Jesus agreed to pay out up to $16 million to settle claims against Falvey, who is also alleged to have abused at least 9 different children in Los Angeles between 1959 and 1975. When asked about the abuse and why he hadn't reported it when it happened, Duterte told reporters, "We realized quite early that life was like that. We were afraid." He also revealed that he had never told anyone about it after his expulsion, especially not his family. After passing the bar exam, Roddy began climbing the legal ladder. He became a special counsel at the city prosecution office in Davao City in 1977, and subsequently rose from 4th assistant city prosecutor to 2nd assistant in just 6 years. Following the People Power Revolution, which restored democracy to the Philippines in 1986, Duterte was appointed vice mayor by President Aquino. In 1988, he ran for mayor as an independent and won. He then served as mayor of Davao City for the next 10 years before becoming a congressman in the Philippines House of Representatives. Duterte would win 6 more terms and continued to serve as Davao City's mayor for a total of 22 years. During that time, he gained a reputation as a controversial yet effective and decisive leader, a reputation that would follow him into his presidency. He also gained a nickname, Digong. Interesting sidebar, in the Philippines it is common practice for politicians to be referred to by their nickname rather than by their full name. In the most recent election, for example, the ballots simply listed Bongbong as one of the candidates, rather than Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Bongbong won, by the way, and is due to replace Duterte as president on June 30th, 2022. As mayor, Digong took a tough stance on crime, particularly on drugs, and transformed Davao into a peaceful, investor-friendly city. This won him a ton of local supporters and had a huge hand in him later becoming president. However, his unconventional methods such as curfews and vigilante justice, plus his outspoken personality, would raise eyebrows and attract heavy criticism from within the Philippines and from around the world. Chocolate. An early indicator of Digong's contentiousness and his flair for the dramatic came in 1995. While still in his role as mayor, it is alleged that Duterte joined 1,000 protesters in Davao City and led them in burning the flag of Singapore. This was in response to a double murder case in which a Filipino maid working in Singapore was found guilty and was subsequently executed by hanging. The case of Flor Contemplacion resulted in strained relations between the two countries, and while Duterte has denied actually burning the flag, he claims he told someone at the time, "Find me a flag of Singapore. Let's burn it. F Singapore." Matters were made worse in 2016, when a spokesman for Duterte had to clarify that he had jokingly said he was going to burn Singapore's flag again, after a backlash over a social media post in which a Singaporean official appeared to back Rodrigo's presidency campaign. During said campaign, Duterte made several bizarre flexes. He had bragged that he had shot a fellow student who had bullied him when at law school. He said in Filipino, "I was a graduating student at San Beda when I shot a man. I waited for him. I told myself I'll teach him a lesson." He said the student survived, but refused to elaborate on the story. A former school official confirmed that Rodrigo wasn't allowed to march in the graduation ceremony due to an incident involving a gun. However, an ex-classmate claims that Duterte and Goko, the guy who was supposedly shot, were actually friends and were just playing with a gun, as guns were commonly brought to school in the Philippines during the 1970s. He claims that the bullet hit the school's wooden floor and was embedded there, and that Duterte and Goko remained friends until the latter died in the United States years later. Apparently, Digong has a tendency to exaggerate his stories. One particularly outrageous comment made by the Filipino leader came amidst his campaign trail in April 2016, when he told supporters that he should have been first after seeing the corpse of Jacqueline Hamill. Hamill was an Australian missionary who was gang-raped and killed during the 1989 Davao hostage crisis. "She was so beautiful. I thought the mayor should have been first," were Duterte's translated words. He did apologize for making a bad remark and for his gutter language, but at the same time said that it wasn't a joke, that he was speaking out of utter anger while recalling the events, and that he would cut ties with both the US and Australia if he was elected because of how their ambassadors responded. The incident didn't appear to hamper Duterte's ratings, though. In fact, his preference rating actually improved from 27% to 33% after making the comments. When Duterte's daughter spoke out about her own experience of being raped, the mayor called her a drama queen and told reporters, "She can't be raped, she carries a gun." Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Gee, with comments like this, he must have had some incredible policies in order to get elected. Well, his proposed policies were certainly radical and ambitious, and his shock and awe tactics certainly struck a chord with Filipino voters. Duterte made some insane promises, the most hair-raising of which was his promise to kill tens of thousands of criminals and to eradicate crime in just 6 months. He also said that he would give himself a presidential pardon for mass murder. While acting as mayor, Duterte made several claims to have personally killed criminals. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have linked Duterte to the extrajudicial killings of more than 1,400 alleged criminals. And in 2009, a United Nations report stated, "The mayor of Davao City has done nothing to prevent these killings," and his public comments suggest that he is, in fact, supportive. Calling human rights for prisoners a Western concept and not for the Philippines, Digong said regarding criminality in Davao, "We're the 9th safest city. How do you think I did it? How did I reach that title among the world's safest cities? Kill them all." For his controversial takes and the fact that he's the only president in the history of the Philippines not to declare his assets and liabilities, Duterte has drawn many comparisons to former U.S. President Donald Trump. Duterte's political stance has been described as populist and nationalist. This has garnered him support from right-wing groups such as the Duterte's Youth, whose official name is Duty to Energize the Republic through the Enlightenment of the Youth Sectoral Party List Organization. Yeah, that's not as catchy as Duterte Youth, is it? Rodrigo has described himself as being left-leaning, but stressed that he is all for democracy and is not a communist, despite wanting to strengthen ties with China and Russia. He has also previously declared the intention to pursue an independent foreign policy. Strawberry. At the age of 71, Duterte became the oldest person ever elected to the Philippines presidency. He received 16.6 million votes, 6.6 million more than his closest rival. Despite Human Rights Watch calling Duterte's first year in office a human rights calamity, the Filipino president battled corruption and fought against terrorism and communist insurgency. He also stood up for minorities and established Davao City's Women Development Code, with the aim to uphold the rights of women and the belief in their worth and dignity as human beings. In terms of infrastructure and the economy, Duterte launched huge projects and reforms, streamlined government processes, and attempted to install a federal system of government, though the last one ultimately failed. In dealing with the coronavirus pandemic, the Philippines was hit hard and fell to last place on Bloomberg's COVID resilience ranking. Vaccines were delayed coming into the country, and heavy lockdowns were enforced by the military to try to curb the high number of infections. The Lowy Institute ranked the Philippines 81st out of 116 countries in their overall handling of the pandemic. In spite of their hardships, the citizens of the Philippines appeared to remain satisfied with their leader during his tenure as president, with satisfaction ratings rarely dropping below 60%. Duterte was awarded the Order of Chivalry from the Philippines, known as the Knights of Rizal. It was an order created to honor and uphold the ideals of Philippine national hero Jose Rizal, who was a key member of the Filipino propaganda movement, executed by the Spanish colonial government for the crime of rebellion. Rizal wrote in favor of the goals which ultimately resulted in the Philippines gaining independence. As for Duterte's lineage, he has 4 children, 2 sons and 2 daughters, 3 of whom are actively engaged in politics. His daughter Sarah is the most prominent, and at the time of this is the vice president-elect of the Philippines. Sara Duterte Carpio is referred to as Mother Ocean, and has a strange tradition of nicknaming her children after fish. Upon the arrival of her 3rd child, Rodrigo Duterte's assistant told reporters that the boy, nicknamed Stonefish, fortifies the president's resolve to leave a legacy of a Philippines safe and secure from drugs and heinous crimes to future generations of Filipinos. If you like this video and want to see more like it, then make sure to leave a like so we know what you think and can continue to bring you the kind of videos you want to see. Let us know if you think there was anything we missed or if you'd like to see someone in particular in the future. We'd love to hear your thoughts on the material we've shown, or other videos like this. Check out the other videos on this channel for fascinating looks into historical figures like this. Until next time, this has been Neapolitan, and we'll see you around.